I don't know how much longer I can hold this.
There was a time, called the aughts, before all of human expression was being greedily digested into featureless paste by soulless automatons, both those made by man and God.
You can join the family. I'm gonna name you...
A truly magical time when Penny Arcade was still culturally relevant, Microsoft was reveling in the success of their only good game console, and the Tim Buckley was sad at his hideous forge smithing the lost.jpg, and joining the heralds of this particular cultural apocalypse was the pale rider known as Suzumiya Haruhi, the many missiles loosed from her fell quiver leaving indelible marks on the internet's cultural landscape. My own dim memories of that time are a kaleidoscopic mishmash of her, the Team Fortress 2 guys, and Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog YouTube poops.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
It was truly a period of erudite cultural scholarism. Now, I never actually watched The Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi, but I always knew it somehow. She and her severally encountered plenipotentiaries memed their way directly into my subconscious. I just didn't know exactly what the deal was with this smarmy anime imp and her Owen-Dan armband. It was really popular at the time, I think. I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention. So this year, I finally watched the whole series for the first time, and I do mean the whole series. To put it mildly, not what I expected. One can't help but approach the show with expectations colored a certain way by its osmotic but deceptive reputation. I always thought it was odd that the Hare Hare Yuukai dance came from a series called The Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi. This doesn't look too melancholic to me. I hesitate to use the word subversive, but The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya is much more dedicated to setting up and destructing expectations than I ever would have expected. I might go so far as to describe it as, at times, challenging. Not to say there isn't any of the moe moe waifu kawaii sex weirdo stuff you'd expect, but boy, the crystal waters here run deeper than they look, and they hold many terrible secrets. We have the daily affairs at yet another Japanese high school of thoroughly average main guy Kyon. Kyon's job is to get swept up in serial shenanigans caused by the titular Haruhi Suzumiya, who, unbeknownst to even herself, possesses the ability to modify and even completely rewrite reality according to her every subconscious whim. In fact, the universe the series takes place in is actually a recently created simulacrum of the original one. This universe allows for psychics, time travel, and other physical impossibilities that are better in line with Haruhi's desire for her life to be awash with unusual events. Why and how her powers suddenly manifest isn't important. It's just that they're how she copes with her near pathological aversion to the mundane. Ever since a fateful trip to a baseball game left her with a pervasive existential crisis, the realization that she lives essentially the same life as millions of other people leads to what I guess you could call the classic free will conundrum. So she copes with questioning her own agency the only way that makes sense. Impulse travel plans and ill-advised artistic endeavors. Incidentally, sub to my YouTube channel where I stream with a live 2D model I rigged myself. Here's a moment from my big Peru trip last year.
人生を凡庸に過ごすのが一番であってだな。
うるさい。
もしかしたらこの会話がネタ振りだったのかもしれない。それは突然やってきた。
A true Chunibyo icon, Haruhi starts her high school career by making a spectacle of herself. She refuses to join teams or to otherwise let her identity become subsumed by anything, at least to the extent that she can prevent it. Not just because she's an autocratic kook, though she does happen to be one, but resisting plasticity to her environment is, along with her frenzied bouts of creative fervor, her only indisputable way to display that all-important agency. It's like anime Jean-Paul Sartre over here or something. Tragically, she's probably smart enough to know how futile her attempts are. Prometheus gave her fire, but all it did was illuminate her doom in high definition. No matter what choices she makes, her options are always limited by the physical properties of the universe, which is why she subconsciously rewrites those rules. The struggle is highlighted in the time loop arc, where even she is consigned to repeat almost the exact same actions again and again. It's quite the predicament, made perhaps all the more poignant by the fact that she is, in fact, a fictional cartoon with no agency. Did I say Jean-Paul Sartre? No, man, this is anime Jean Baudrillard. Her plight is arguably what's at the core of nearly all human failings. The flailing desire to resist being auto-fed through a stymieing lifestyle that was chosen for you before your birth is a theme that's come up a lot in relatable anime series. I understand, Haruhi. I mean, I hate this shit. So despite her manifest insanity, her frustrations are pretty sympathetic. That said, she is kind of a cocksucker sometimes. In her quest for unusual events, she founds what is only in the most technical sense an after-school club, the SOS Dan. It quickly amasses its constituent members, all of whom are actually the very genres of weirdo that Haruhi most desires to meet in real life. Asahina is from the future, so there's 2 of her running around. Yuki Nagato is an alien with an asterisk next to it. Itsuki Koizumi is a psychic and part of a shadowy cabal who's actually in charge of keeping track of Haruhi and subtly guiding her wishes away from anything that might destroy the universe. He's also a surprise addition to what up until that point seems like it has the makings of a harem fantasy wish fulfillment team. In fact, all of the... Is tritagonist a word? Yeah, okay. All the tritagonists seem like they specifically promise a wish fulfillment fantasy that never comes about, unless being bossed around by a small forward malcontent makes the cut, in which case, fair enough. I don't question your wants in this life. Like with Nagato, you have the standard issue taciturn smart one of the group. Her role in Haruhi's fantasy is as proof of alien life. In addition to checking the Megane Moe box, she straight up puts a fool on ice. Yeah, she gets killy. It's one of her main purposes besides being Exposition Bot 5000. Plus, she course corrects on occasions when Haruhi ends up displacing them in time, which happens more often than you'd expect. The obvious route with this character would be for the emotional blank slate to learn about love with the main guy's help. But the most of an arc she really gets is she gets to finally experience fun in the form of beating a bunch of Linux neckbeards at their own homebrew Steam game. I mean, that works. I'm happy for her. The thing of it is she often ends up being the only one aware when stuff like this happens, as there's no evidence of the problems she corrects, other than the one time she accidentally made it so she doesn't eat glasses anymore. Haruhi never knows that any of this is going on. Her clubmates specifically work to prevent her from becoming aware of her godlike powers for obvious reasons. She is crazy. And amid all these super beings is the unremarkable everyman Kyon, whose exact purpose is a bit of a mystery, but whose very unremarkability sets him apart from the other club members in a significant way. The fact that he isn't one of the exceptional people subject to Haruhi's will seems to make him the only one to have joined the SOS Dan out of his own free volition. Then again, maybe Haruhi simply summoned him to serve as an example of free will being possible, in which case does that mean he has free will or not? Well, I mean, he does almost get killed kind of a lot. Really puts the emergence in emergency, if you know what I mean. It's also possible that Kyon was summoned to serve the more quotidian role of Haruhi's potential love interest. Unlike the paranormal nonsense, this is an experience she isn't consciously aware that she wants, so the universe doesn't push for it as obviously. But, it helps explain why he keeps getting cockblocked all the time. During one of the occasions where her ennui results in a hemispherical pocket of collapsing existence, I swear I'm doing my best to describe this show exactly as it happens, okay? Imminent disaster is prevented not with a psychic power showdown or some fourth dimensional trickery, but with a well-timed smooch. This girl is literally down apocalyptic. Fuck, man, I thought this was going to be about a girl in a bunny suit starting a band or something. You'll typically see the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi categorized as either sci-fi or slice of life. As seemingly implausible a combination of genres as those are, boy oh boy are they both ever fuck it close enough heuristics. Because despite everything I've talked about, the show is actually pretty down to earth most of the time, only rarely foraying into the larger than life scenarios. The main cast does have a time traveling maid from the future, but that doesn't keep them from dedicating an entire episode to Kyon heading into town to fetch a space heater for their club room. There's, shall we say, several episodes dedicated to exhaustively chronicling the last few weeks of their summer vacation, and it can be downright reserved, certainly making extensive use of what they call ma.
Ma, the show is rotting my ass.
There is some season 1 Rick and Morty style mind-fucking moments too, like spoilers I guess, where we find out that there was a time-displaced Kyon in Yuki's apartment through the whole first part of the story. I actually applaud the show's flagrant contempt for the conventions of story structure, pacing, and basic human logic. You know, you get to a point where you start to feel a little too genre savvy for your own good. Act structure, Chekhov's guns, an ever-expanding catalog of tropes, it gets harder and harder to be surprised or to feel like something will be worth your time. Especially in an era that sees us entering a fully satire-redundant dystopia of barely cogent second-screen media, or to use the term that's caught on, slop. I have an enhanced, almost reverent appreciation for anything that dares to do anything that could remotely alienate an audience. And Christ, does Haruhi, both the character and the show, live to be alienating. Except in how accurately it depicts the use of computers. My man even has a hidden directory for his Asahina pics. Boy, they knew their audience. That is a total family computer era move. I mean, goddamn. There are so many moments where you start to think, oh, okay, so this is where the story's going. But be wary. This show deals in trickery and deceit, and especially in fake climaxes. Probably the single most famous moment of the entire series is the famed Bunny Girl rock song scene, featuring the perennial classic God Knows. It makes its fairly unceremonious appearance in an episode largely dominated by a disinterested Kyon wandering around a school festival in a sleep-deprived stupor. He stayed up all night editing, and now he's paying the piper. Relatable. They spend more time on him getting yakisoba with his friends than the Battle of the Bands thing he eventually just wanders into. But this kick-ass song is actually one of the only things I knew about the series beforehand, and goddamn, God Knows is fucking rad. I mean, it's true Haruhi style to make a song this good and then have it not even be an OP or ED. No disrespect to Superdrive. One of my main reasons for finally watching it was to finally get the context behind this song, and 28 episodes later, there isn't much. I always figured this had to be some huge climactic payoff moment. It's not. It's not even a major part of the episode. It's not even Haruhi's band. It was just like a momentary dalliance that never gets brought up again, much like the incipient promise of a romantic entanglement. It's just one of many trajectories a story could take, which are then duly shunned in favor of things I would just never expect.
Haruhi,
何
似合ってるぞ。
On the subject of that romantic arc, it never really comes up again, save for a few hand-holdy moments and times where it looks like Haruhi might be jealous of Kyon paying attention to other women, especially the hapless Mikuru, whom she seems to regard with something approaching murderous intent at times. Like, it actually gets uncomfortable.
誰との約束だそれは。つまらん。朝比奈さんはお前のおもちゃじゃねえぞ。
私が決めたの。みくるちゃんは私のおもちゃなの。
While she never really gets punished as she deserves for her more amoral stunts, it's possible that Kyon serves to be the moral compass that she desires to help keep her in line, somewhat. Both Haruhi's biggest flaw and her main redeeming feature is the fact that she is unapologetically insane. Where, say, narcissism is all about declaring an identity that is totally detached from one's actions, Haruhi knows that her actions inform her identity. That Asahina thing is kind of just an unusually unsavory incident. Usually, she's just being an unapologetic go-getter. Like when she inevitably gets castigated by the school staff for things like using a sexy bunny girl outfit to advertise her club or setting off firecrackers for a film project, she's just sort of affronted that it doesn't make as much sense to everyone else as it does to her. Like, I just brought these explosives to school to make a cool movie. What's the fucking problem? Everything about her and the world she lives in defies logic. Even the production defies logic. Apparently, the entire first season originally aired out of plot order, even putting other episodes right in between multi-part episodes. The episode about Haruhi designing a logo for their club comes directly in between a two-part island murder mystery episode. That's certainly a decision someone made, but the second season debuted along with a re-airing of the first, now collated in story chronological order. Purportedly, there are a few other valid episode orderings as well, and apparently 4chan Anons helped advance a long-standing mathematical equation to supermutate the ways you could watch the episodes. Even the Wikipedia page needs a friggin' Lycomb diagram to help keep track of this shit. I'm actually kind of mad that I never thought of an approach to episode reordering like the one Haruhi does. The system trained me to think linearly, and now that I've seen a show like this so ingeniously work out a full story around a limiting production cycle, I wonder if more shows can do something like this to get artistic intent and production realities to cooperate. Looking at you, Hasman Hotel. Seeing it in full series chronological order certainly makes it more comprehensible, but maybe watching it week to week in the most shambolic way possible is an irreplaceable experience that's lost to time. Like trying to emulate light gun games, you know? There's a sort of shell shock you see coming off people who say, I watched the Endless 8 arc in real time. Speaking of which, Endless 8. Endless fucking 8. I'm honestly astonished at the temerity of the Endless 8 arc. Suzumiya Haruhi is a show that summons bizarre confidence to take what you know about narrative structure, pacing, and basic storytelling and say, no, none of that. Maybe saying it's like a serial killer telling you to get in his van without bothering to put clothes on isn't the best pull quote. Maybe that's not a great pull quote. The infamous Endless 8 arc is about the closest thing they get to a filler arc, but which so flagrantly flaunts the logic of even having a filler episode that I'm honestly still shocked by it. It's probably the strangest narrative decision in the history of media. Having an entire 2-part episode that more or less retreats all the exact same events and story beats as the prior episode, with new animation, mind, only to reveal in a twist towards the end that they're now stuck in a time loop and that this is like the 15,000th time it's happened. That would have been a good enough twist on its own. How daring to basically do most of the same exact episode twice. I honestly got gaslit by the second episode, thinking I was accidentally loading up the first one again. I can't imagine how people reacted to it when it was on TV. I feel like this would have been kind of a controversy if it came out nowadays, but the high-density neutron degenerate matter balls it takes to do what you did again for a third episode without resolution, and subsequently again for a fourth and a fifth, and eventually it dawns on you that it will literally live up to its name. 8 episodes of this? Getting through it all over the course of a week of VODs felt like a slog, so I can't even imagine it airing weekly over the course of a month and a half. This actually takes up more than half of the 14 episodes they added to the revised run of the series. There are still books and source material that hasn't been adapted to animation. I'm just awed by their decision to do this way. Man, just reliving it is like a death march. But I mean, when else on earth has watching a lot of TV ever felt almost like an accomplishment? Simply stunning. Well, however mind-flaying the Endless 8 arc might have been, I'll definitely remember it. Hell, I'll simply allude to it as a byword of fearful repute. You see how singular an experience this show is? And how misguided your assumptions might be? However well justified? Safe to say, Haruhi made an impression. Is it a good show? Yeah, it's hard to even begin to critique. It's like asking if the Nazca lines or the pyramids are good. I almost worry that this video might be doing people a disservice. Like, you either go into this thing blind or you miss the full impact. I mean, like, watching the show for the first time is like if you lifted up a rock in the woods and beneath was a gleaming golden centipede that wound its way around a girthy tree, extending to impossible length in the process while filling the area with pink smoke, and then it dissolves into light and everything tastes and smells like raspberries for a week. That would certainly be a memorable experience. But mere vocabulary like good or bad falls short of being able to articulate one's feelings about it. Look, man, I watched the whole Endless 8 arc. That changes a man.